In the business of cable news, there are certain times throughout the year when major news stories break that networks expect to see a big spike in ratings. Even a network like CNN, who on your typical average day struggles to attract the bruised caboose to a fresh tube of the boodle soother, the Prep H. Even networks like CNN, they will see ratings spike throughout the year when there is a major story circulating the mainstream media. During the month of August, for example, CNN, they experienced a drastic spike in ratings with the arrest and the indictment of Donald Trump. Orange Man bad. Their sulking savior, Caitlin Collins, Katie Roo, Katie Roo. Katie Roo had been dominated in the ratings throughout the summer. There were even rumors at one point that CNN was contemplating moving her out of prime time if her ratings did not improve. But as soon as the Orange Man was in handcuffs and those woke boners were standing at attention, ooh, I love seeing the Orange Man in cuffs. It gives me plenty of ideas for role play with my inflatable lover Jake that used to identify as Kate. Donald Trump gets arrested. Katie Roo does the impossible. For the first time ever for Roo and for the first time on CNN since the Trump town hall back in, what was that, May? The network managed to pull over 1 million viewers in prime time for The Source with Katie Roo. And the title of that show, the title of her show always confused me. The Source? The source of what? The source of propaganda? The source of huge embarrassing failure? The source of anonymity? Because that is what Caitlin Collins is, anonymous. This show never captures the attention of the media. It damn sure doesn't capture the attention of normal people. But as soon as the Trumper got arrested, a star is born. Katie Roo draws 1 million viewers. Over the past couple of weeks, network coverage of the war in Israel has caused a spike in ratings for cable news networks. Fox News, a network that has struggled to grow their audience this year, Fox News saw a 42% increase in their ratings. CNN, 17% increase. For the first time this year, CNN is actually back to competing with major networks instead of competing with Newsmax and News Nation, the home of their former partner in the butt bongo, Chris Cuomo. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C. With ratings increasing across the board, it's only right to assume that MSNBC experienced a dramatic increase too, right? When major stories happen, especially when it pertains to a war, the casual viewer, it is more interested in the news. Instead of the wife watching Dancing with the Stars, she's watching The Last Turd with Larry O'Connell. Instead of watching opening night of the NBA season, which performed absolutely terrible the other night for TNT. We might get into that tomorrow, but instead of watching the NBA, normal dudes tune into the Wicked Weave Joy Reid, right? Instead of the shit fucks watching RuPaul's drag show or RuPaul's drag race, whatever the hell it's called, they're watching the super nerd Chrissy Hayes on MSNBC, right? Imagine my surprise when I pull the ratings and I see that primetime ratings at MSNBC have declined by 33%. How is that possible? How are ratings at a news network, and I know it's a stretch to call MSNBC a news network, but how are ratings at MSNBC declining during the biggest news story of the year? I wonder why. Took me about 30 minutes this afternoon to figure out the reason. Last month, the Wicked Weave was averaging 1.3 million shit fucks. Before the war in Israel, that number had risen to 1.4 million. Following week, Joy Reid's ratings had fallen to 1.1 million, their lowest since July. I wonder if it had anything to do with how Joy Reid and MSNBC have chosen to cover this conflict. If I were to ask you to describe the initial attack by Hamas, how would you describe it? I think most people would describe it as terrorism, right? Perhaps an unjustified attack on civilian life? Glenn Beck, I think, described it as Israel's 9/11. Fox News labeled Hamas terrorist. Hell, many countries throughout the world have labeled Hamas a terrorist group. Not MSNBC, though. No. These are freedom fighters. If I were to ask you who is to blame for what is happening in Israel right now, who would you say is to blame? Who is at fault here? Now, if this question is too difficult for you to answer, don't worry about that because MSNBC, they have done the due diligence to come up with an answer for us. According to MSNBC, Hamas is not to blame for what's going on. This conflict is a direct result of the failed policies by Israel and the United States. Excuse me? Come again? You mean to tell me it's Israel's fault that they were attacked? What did they do? Ask for it? Dear Mahmoud, can you do me a favor? Can you shoot a rocket directly into my ass? Signed, your friend Israel. That would be like blaming ESPN for Bomani Jones being a huge embarrassing failure. I mean, ESPN tried to make the Bobo a star, just like Israel has tried to maintain peace with the Palestinians. A couple of weeks ago, Joy Reid, she had some doofus on her show. I think his name was Fuck Knuckle. They were talking about the conflict in Israel. Now, I want you to pay close attention to how they try to shape this narrative. This is what the mainstream media does. They try to play on your emotions. They try to get you to feel sorry for the children. Oh, the children. What about the children? Let's bring those innocent children to America and give them the gender-affirming care they need. Listen to how Joy Reid and Fuck Knuckle try to shape the narrative. Roll the film.
What are Israeli troops going to be bombing?
It's a great question, Joy, and it's important, I think, for our viewers to understand what Gaza is and what it is not. It is not an open, sovereign territory where people have the freedom to leave, as you were discussing in your earlier segment. It is a people that have been besieged and blockaded primarily by Israel, but also by Egypt for the better part of 15 years. If you're a 15-year-old Palestinian child born in about 2006, 2005, you will have survived 4 major Israeli operations, and you are now living through your 5th one. The amount of mental and post-traumatic stress disorder, mental trauma that a generation of Palestinians have been living through cannot even be fathomed, cannot even be described.
Are you starting to understand why Americans have turned off this absolute garbage? This is another classic case of the media giving you a partial truth. Here on the channel, we call it the shit sandwich. 2 truths with a lie hidden in between. But the doofus is right. Someone born in Palestine 15 years ago, they are going through their 5th conflict with Israel. But did you notice he doesn't explain why? He doesn't explain how we got to this point. He just insinuates that Israel is to blame and we should feel sorry for the Palestinian children. Since MSNBC doesn't want to do their job properly, I had to figure this out for myself. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I don't know much about the Middle East. I don't know much about Israel or Palestine. Before I did all this research, one of the only things I knew about Israel and Palestine were they were always fighting with each other. But back in the 1960s, Israel won control over the Gaza Strip by defeating Egypt in the 6-Day War. Now you fast forward to 2005, Israel, they withdraw from the Gaza Strip, handing the land back to the Palestinians. If I remember correctly, I think the United Nations was calling this the 2-state solution. Yeah, how'd that work out? 1 year later, Hamas is installed as the government. Now, guess who voted them in? The Palestinians. The same Palestinians that MSNBC is trying to turn into the victims. These people don't have anywhere to go. They need a place of refuge. Yeah, well, I imagine they do. Egypt is right next door. Why don't they go to Egypt? Oh, they can't. Egypt won't let them in. What about Jordan? Jordan is a pleasant donkey ride away. I'm sure the Jordanians would be willing to accept refugees. Oh, wait, they won't either. The president of Jordan, he came out publicly and said, we won't accept a single Palestinian refugee. Now, why do you think that is? Both Egypt and Jordan, they are Muslim countries. Why are they not willing to help out here? I don't think it's very difficult to figure it out. The truth is, MSNBC's coverage of what is going on in Israel, it has been absolutely disgusting. MSNBC has made over 400 references to Hamas. Now, guess how many times they have called them terrorists? Just take a wild guess. 0. Like I said earlier, MSNBC, they call them fighters. Brock Lesnar is a fighter. Mike Tyson was a fighter. There is a huge difference between a fighter and a terrorist. A couple of weeks ago, Andrea Mitchell, she was interviewing an Israeli mother whose teenage sons were abducted by Hamas. Casey, who in the hell's Andrew Meacham? Andrea Mitchell, she's like MSNBC's version of Wolf Blitzer. Woof, woof, woof. A fossil who is desperately trying to hang on to the final days of her mainstream media career. I saw a clip a few weeks ago. Andrea Mitchell, she was falling asleep live on MSNBC. They were showing a clip of John Biden who had fallen asleep at some event. Since Andrea Mitchell is inspired by Johnny B. Biden, she decided to emulate him and took herself a little cat nap. She's interviewing this Israeli mother who is obviously distraught about her two sons being abducted. This is a very sensitive topic. What does Andrea Mitchell ask this poor woman? She asked her why Israel was sending airstrikes into the Gaza Strip. Really? Really? Of all the questions you could have asked her, of all the sympathies you could have given this poor mother who has no idea what is happening to her two children, the question Andrea Mitchell thinks to ask her is related to the military response from Israel? I would be willing to bet that this mother is fully supportive of Israel's response. Matter of fact, I'll let the mother speak for herself. Listen to her response to this absolutely ridiculous question from Andrea Mitchell.
I can't be sympathetic to animal human beings, well, they're not really human beings, who came into my house, broke everything, stole everything, took my children from their bedrooms and took them to the Gaza Strip. Israel never done that and will never do. So there is no symmetry. I'm sorry.
MSNBC is absolutely disgusting. Their coverage of what is happening in Israel, absolutely disgusting. And it's not like this is coming from just one anchor. It's not like this is only happening on one show at the network. From Joy Reid to Larry O'Donnell, Andrea Mitchell, this entire network has been infected with the fungus. I don't think their ratings have fallen far enough. When CNN is providing better coverage, your network has a serious problem. CNN is a dump. CNN can't get anything right, but I will give them a little bit of credit. For the most part, CNN has tried to be better covering Israel, at least from what I've seen from the network. But MSNBC, they just can't get past the politics. It's horrible, horrible. But give me your thoughts. Fox News, CNN, huge bumps in their ratings, while ratings at MSNBC down 33%. What do you think of MSNBC's coverage of Israel? Better yet, why do you think MSNBC is covering Israel the way that they are? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate every one of you guys and your continued support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.